Well, I didn't want to bore you with turning the square piece of wood into a cylinder. I think most of us have seen that, and I think that's a fairly basic thing. I don't need to show that again. I just wanted to make a couple of points. One is the distance from the tool rest to the wood. If you can stick your finger in there, you can catch your finger in there, and boy, let me tell you, that would hurt. I never want to find out what that hurts like. So keep your tool rest fairly close to the work so you can't stick your finger in there. Second thing is, you're working with a gouge on spindle work, you basically want the tool rest to be slightly below center. If you're working with a skew, you want it to be slightly above center. How much? That's a hard thing to say. A lot of it will depend on the size of the wood, the size of the skew, even the height of the lathe off the floor compared to your height to where you stand and how the tool sits comfortably. You're going to have to figure that out yourself. Okay. I don't know how well you can see the finish on there, but it's right off the roughing gouge. It's it's fairly smooth. You got your rough spots here and there, but it's fairly smooth, but certainly not finished. Now, if I get my 1/2-inch skew here with the Convex Eli grind on it, you can see already that it easily cuts wood very nicely, like a chisel, like a skew chisel, I guess, and it leaves a very, very nice surface. A couple of points on this is when you're turning on this, I think that's got to go up just a bit more. When you're turning on this, you want to use area of the chisel. Let me get my pen and show you. This is something that Eli emphasizes. When you're doing a flat planing cut like this, you don't want to use the actual short point. You want to use just past it. So if you're looking at it here, you want to use this spot from about there, just about halfway. So there's a sweet spot right in there. That little area right there is where you want to use to do your planing cut. Fortunately, I don't know how well you can see that in the video, but it's just off the corner, just under about halfway. The reason you don't want to use anything longer is the way that the work is supported on the tool rest. If you're using right in here, you've got your point of contact on a direct line almost to where the point of contact is on the tool rest. If you use the top point here, then you've offset the point of contact on the tool to the point of contact on the tool rest enough that you can't control it, and it will dig in and turn, and that's where you get your huge catch and you need to go change your underwear. So I'm going to just show you here. The lathe is turning at, 2700 RPM. For spindle work, speed is a wonderful thing. Of course, turn at the speed you're comfortable at. If you find that's too fast or you find that's a little bit unnerving or whatever, slow it down. But you will find with spindle work, because the work is so narrow, that 2700 RPM is not really that fast compared to, let's say, a bowl. A bowl that's, say, 6 or 8 inches, you've got the work where you're cutting is 3 or 4 inches in diameter away from where the center of the lathe is, and 2700 RPM is freaking fast. On spindle work, it may look fast, it may sound fast, but actually it's not that fast because the piece of wood is fairly narrow in size. So I'm just going to make a couple of planing cuts here and just show you how nice and smoothly this tool cuts. I'm going to stop there and show you. Again, I'm sorry, I don't know how well you can see that on the video, but the difference between this and this is really, really nice and smooth, and where this is rough. The important point here, when you're doing a planing cut like this, is to use that sweet spot, like I said, on the skew. But the other thing is also to not use the tip, because if you use a tip, then you're actually pulling the fibers off of the piece of wood. You're not closing them as you cut them. When you cut with that part there, you're actually slicing the fibers, and you have support of the fiber beside it. It's kind of like this. If you have your, it's like petting a dog or whatever. You cut from here, and you push against this fiber, and there's another fiber behind it to support it. You get a nice clean cut. But if you cut from here, let's say, and the fiber's like that, and you cut you cut up like this, and the fiber is not supported, then it breaks off on the other side. And then that causes the rough cut. And if you use the very end of it, the very short tip of it, then you get a problem there. Let me show you what I mean. So this is a regular planing, this is a cut using the corner. And you get that little mushroom there. And maybe you can't see it, but it's not nearly as smooth as the straight planing cut. And that's because with this cut, you're actually lifting the fibers away from the wood, you're not cutting them away. And in that way you get a rougher cut. So you don't want to do that on a planing cut like this. You want to do a nice, smooth, even cut. So there we've got a nice smooth cut. Not exactly maybe even, it's a little bit wavy yet because my tool control is unfortunately not what I wish it was, but I'm working on it. So, and of course you can cut both ways. I happen to be right-handed, but I do a lot of stuff with both hands. If you want to cut the other way, of course you would have to reposition your body and turn this way. But I find it much easier for me anyways, just to switch hands and cut the other direction with the left hand. The last cut there was actually a little bit heavy. The other thing about the Skew is that you want to be taking, I mean you can see the stuff on my arm here, these are very, very small, very light shavings. This is pine, it's just regular old 2x4 pine. Just, you know, got it out of the burn box, or the cut box I guess, or the, in my case in Tokyo I don't burn it, I give it to the city and they burn it. But it's just regular old pine, and because the Skew chisel is very sharp, it cuts it very easily. Something else I wanted to show here that I keep forgetting to do because it's a new thing for me. Eli is showing on his videos and on his instruction that when you hang on to a tool like this, a gouge or even a Skew, that you're better to point your finger instead of holding it in a death grip like this. And the reason for that is that if you hang onto the tool like this and twist your wrist, your movement is fairly limited. If you hang onto the tool like this and twist the wrist, your movement is much more free and easy to move. And so when you're trying to control the tool, especially when you're doing like a cove or a bead, depending if you're using a spindle gouge or not, if you're much more flexible and much more easy to twist your wrist like this, it's going to show up in your cuts too. That's something I keep reminding myself to try to do. Okay, I'm going to mark this off and then I'm going to show you some other cuts.